This is my updated draft for FPL Game Week 1, and I've managed to fit in the two big hitters, Haaland and Salah. It gets a 91% team rating, powered by Fantasy Football Hub. You can get 50% off right now and win your mini league or your money back using the link in the description to this video. Let's smash 500 likes on this one. Just hit 31k subscribers. Thanks for all the pre-season support. On the road to 35k for the Game Week 1 deadline. Let's get into it. Starting off between the sticks then, and I feel like the goalkeeper slot is the one that I'm struggling the most with in FPL right now, and I honestly could not call it whether I'm going to spend 4.5 million, 5 million, 5.5 million on my main goalkeeper. I could even opt for two rotating 4.5 million options. The one that's in at the moment though, and I have blown the budget here, is Arsenal's David Raya. I'm looking at the Arsenal defence at the moment and the amount of strength they've got in each position now, and I feel like there could be a lot of rotation. That causes me some concern for a defence that's very expensive to get into. Raya at 5.5 million doesn't feel too bad, bearing in mind he won the Golden Glove last season, managed 7 clean sheets in their last 10 game weeks. Now, the Gunners were grinding out results in their quest to defeat Manchester City for the Premier League title, so they'll play a lot more open at the start of the season, you'd imagine. But I feel like Raya could be a set and forget that we just lock in and soak up the clean sheets as the season progresses. But, you know, if I need to free up funds, he's going to be the first one that goes in this draft. The inclusion of Raya obviously means that there's no Ben White in my defence now. Sticking with Vardiol from Manchester City, because I was just looking at his numbers from the final 10 game weeks of last season. 6 attacking returns, the highest scoring defender in the game. I feel like he is a must at the moment, making sure that we've got some coverage from one of the best defences in the Premier League. But then it's budget elsewhere, and it is very budget, to be honest with you. Anderson and Mykolenko both keep their places, but at the moment they're maybe looking like the second and third defenders in this draft. Now, I must note that while they did rotate nicely, there is a concern on the fitness of Mykolenko. He hasn't been involved in pre-season matches yet. Hopefully this is something that resolves before the Game Week 1 deadline, but I do need to be flexible here because a lot can happen. But I'm actually looking at a 3-way rotation between Mykolenko, Harwood-Bellis and Brighton defender Barco, who was bought in January. Estupinan is the main left back, you would imagine still, but he's injured, not going to be a part of things for the Seagulls until October or November. So Barco's going to deputise, and he's been on corners in pre-season, very attacking, could potentially be playing out of position as a wing back as well. He has the potential to break the game at 4 million and now looks like a shoe-in in my defence, and it does save crucial funds to obviously spend further forwards. He could even be elevated to be a third defender in his own right at the moment, one that I'm monitoring. We're definitely going to have some inclusion in my squad. Into the midfield then, and I am back into a 3-4-3 formation. I think that's the formation I feel most comfortable with to start the season. And obviously from my last draft, Salah does retain his place. He has been playing as a winger in pre-season. I think Slot is going to go with a number 9, so I do still need to monitor whether that has an impact on his attacking potential, but it's unlikely we're going to see Liverpool play with a number 9 until deep into pre-season, after Darwin was a late returner from the Copa America. Odegaard is probably the next most expensive player in my squad after Salah and Haaland. 8.5 million. One thing I need to watch out for though is that Saka is due back this weekend into the pre-season setup for the Gunners, so that could impact the potential of Odegaard. Now, Jesus has been doing very well in pre-season, getting a lot of minutes, so we could see Jesus as the number 9, Havertz moving deeper, and Odegaard back into the 10 role. That's what I really want to see from Odegaard to give him the potential. He does feel like an expensive luxury at the moment, but Arsenal's first 3 fixtures are great, and if I'm only going with Raya from the defence, who offers me nothing from an attacking perspective, covering the Arsenal attack potential with Odegaard feels like a must. But again, he's going to likely be a cash cow if I do want to spread a few more funds around in this squad. Now, Gibbs White keeps his place in the midfield, but there's no room for Mbeumo, unfortunately, just priced out of that one. I've gone with Nkunku instead. Hopefully he can cover Palmer. He's got a couple of goals in pre-season already. Admittedly, one was a penalty, and obviously when Palmer comes in, you would imagine that Palmer will be first choice on penalties, given his record. Not wholly convinced on Chelsea in general after a poor pre-season performance where they lost 4-1 to Celtic. We have to wonder how much weight we put on pre-season form. But Nkunku could be a bit of a cheat code this season, reclassified as a midfielder and at a cheap price. And we haven't seen his potential in FPL yet, having spent much of last season injured. And Mbeumo's still in my thoughts, as is Newcastle United's Anthony Gordon, a player that I couldn't quite reach in this draft. I need to think about whether I want to double up on the Newcastle United attack or whether I just stick with one. And in this 3-4-3, I've got Harry Winks of Leicester at the moment as my budget, £4.5 million midfielder for the bench. It is a really cheap budget bench here, by the way. He seems like the best option at the moment, but still scouring in pre-season. A better option could become available. We just need to wait and see. Now, one thing to note was that when I did the Salah draft with no Haaland, I had Foden in the midfield in a 3-5-2, and that was because I was hoping that perhaps Foden could cover Haaland. Now, Pep Guardiola was very firm in his quote the other day to say that those that have arrived back late from international duty in the summer will take no part in pre-season, including in the Community Shield game, which comes a week on Sunday. That includes Foden and De Bruyne, so it now becomes ultimately very, very difficult to cover Haaland with another Manchester City attacker. So that's why I feel like Haaland is now pretty much close to essential in our FPL sides. The utility, the captaincy, his pre-season form, he's fresh. We're going to see a lot more managers moving back towards Haaland. I'm pretty certain that Haaland's going to be in my draft team come the game week 1 deadline. Less convinced on Salah, but I am quite committed to finding a way to make it work. I've been on this team, by the way, for about a week now. Been away for a few days, come back, still happy with it. So I can't see it changing a lot before the game week 1 deadline. Obviously things will crop up and there are a few players that I'm less sure on, but I think the core of this team is pretty settled now in my eyes. Now, joining Haaland in the forward line, Isak feels like a must-have. His form from the end of last season, a full pre-season, the fixtures as well. There's just too many boxes ticked to ignore him. The third forward is another slot that I'm struggling with here. Currently got Brighton's João Pedro, another injury concern, which isn't great for pre-season involvement, but hopefully he'll be available come the game week 1 deadline. I'm also looking at Chris Wood, who's at 6 million. The problem with him is Taiwan Awoniyi is looking fit, and that gives a lot of competition in that Forest front line, so that's something to keep an eye on. And again, I quite like Gibbs White, so doubling up with Forest attackers seems a little bit much. There's also Muniz at Fulham. Fulham have got some great fixtures. He's 6 million as well. So he's another one that I'm keeping an eye on, but again, not wholly convinced that he's the one to go for. Ideally, I'd love to get to that 7.5 million bracket, and Solanke, who made my pre-season watch list, is a player I'd love to fit in, but that would mean downgrades probably to Odegaard and Raya to be able to afford it. So it's just deciding where the compromises are, whether the budget picks are where we go in midfield and in the goalkeeper slot to beef up the forward line. But pretty pleased with this 3-4-3 formation. Obviously, this squad has got a 91% team rating on Fantasy Football Hub, predicted to score 63.9 points in game week 1. You can get your AI team rated for free. You can get all the points predictions and so much more to help you win at FPL as a Fantasy Football Hub member with 50% off right now using the link in the description to this video. You'll also get advantage of that offer of win your mini league or your money back, which is pretty brilliant. You'll get a full refund if you don't win your mini league, which is just incredible. That's how confident Hub are that you'll become a winning FPL manager. Make sure you hit that like button as well. We're aiming for 500 likes once again on this. You've done great at this, guys, and on the road for 35k by the game week 1 deadline. Only got a couple of weeks to get there, so all of your support is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.